Hello, everyone. I'm Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby with Jared Bush, Byron Howard, and Yvett Merino. And they are behind the hit animated Disney film Encanto. And what I love about this film is that the main character, Mirabel, really instantly pops off the screen. You instantly root for her as an audience member. And as you're developing this character, what was sort of the most important aspect of that character to get across to audiences?
Oh wow! I think
Yeah.
I'd say early on, I think we knew that she would be the only member of her family who was not given a magical gift. But we didn't want her to be a sad sack. We wanted her to be someone who'd sort of kind of tried to accept that and move past that and still tried to show up for her family. And also see sort of like psychologically what that does to a person, like she's quirky. She's definitely has moments where she's really trying to do something more than she can actually do. She's headstrong at the same time. She has these moments of extreme vulnerability. And I think we like to say that she's our most human character we've ever tried to put across on screen before. And hopefully, I think for me, definitely someone who's very relatable, surrounded by amazing people wondering, can you fit in?
Yeah, the first time we met Stephanie Beatrice, I was speaking personally, I was a big fan of hers from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but I can't say that I ever heard her speak outside of that show. So I thought, wait a minute, is this the same person? Because she doesn't sound like Rosa Diaz at all. She sounds like Mirabel, and she actually came into audition for a different role. But to Jared's point, like she was so disarming and funny and self-deprecating, and to top it all off, her audition song was Lynn's song "You're Welcome" from Moana, and it was so good and so funny that one of our animators actually animated Mirabel to it, and was one of the things that set the tone for who that character would be through the movie. So big props to Steph, because she can not only sing her lungs out, but she just is so winning. Like the instant you meet her, that's that heart and kind of vulnerability and humanness that Jared mentioned. It really was all part of who she is.
Wow. I think in the eventual DVD release, I would say we should get that animation of her doing "You're Welcome" on there. That would be fantastic. What was it about her? Because she is a surprise, I think, in this. I mean, we've loved her in other projects, of course, and she sings a bit in The Heights, but I didn't know she could sing like this in this movie. What was it about her that made Stephanie right for the role?
Well,
Oh, wow.
I think that we obviously we talked to a lot of different people, and when she came in, it was just really hands down. I mean, she was able to bring, show. She was just so naturally Mirabel, because we had already known who that character was by the time we started talking to her. And when we, first recorded her, she just blew us all out of the water, because she's able to just be funny and improvise and then go down so small and be so vulnerable and really take us all with her. It was just truly amazing to watch.
I think one of the tricks with this character is that, historically, our movies have been buddy comedies for a long time. And we knew this was not going to be that. We knew that Mirabel was going to have to carry this movie, that yes, she was going to interact with all these members of her family, but I think whoever played her would have to have this pretty incredible range and also be someone you wanted to spend time with for 90 minutes straight. And I think when Stephanie came in, I think it was this, you always dream of having the actor be the character, not have to put on, a different voice or to be something different. And I think she related to Mirabel so much. And then, of course, once you get her voice in, then there's this really awesome meld between character and actor that happens. And like Yvette said, ad-libbing like crazy, but was great. It wasn't just ad-libbing comedically, which she's phenomenal at. She could also ad-lib in those really emotional parts and really bring herself into it. So I think it was sort of this deepening of the character that we always dreamed of. And I can't imagine anyone but Stephanie being able to pull it off.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting thing you bring up with the buddy comedy aspect, because it's true when you think of Moana and Maui together and in Zootopia. Is it more difficult in a movie like this when there's not just one set scene partner for your lead to make each relationship really stand out and feel unique?
Yes,
Correct.
Correct. It is great. Actually, we had to fight the buddy thing. You know, it was so, Bruno, honestly, was so interesting as a character. Early versions of our script, our early screenings, he was almost so dominant that he pushed a lot of the other family members out of the movie, and that couldn't happen. So we really had to work on how to introduce him, how to kind of get his backstory into the air, because just by nature, he was so tragic. Like this kid, you know, a 5-year-old kid who was given this gift, who could see the future, and how his reputation around town sort of tore him apart, and he eventually left the family. That's a pretty big story. And so in order to not let that overwhelm the other family members, we really had to balance that. And that's where Jared and Charisse did many drafts of the script, trying to fine tune that, and then to kind of get Bruno to come in when he does in the film. And he's a breath of fresh air, and he's just this great ingredient when he comes in. But that was not easy to find. It's tough to balance a dozen characters when you have that balance. Is such a necessary thing for the story.
And I know these animated films take quite a long time to come to fruition, from concept to final product. So how would you say this film has sort of changed and evolved the most from when you first sat down to create it?
It's interesting. This was, I think, a slightly different one for us, in that from the beginning, we knew we were going to have this large extended family. We knew the character of Mirabel would be at the center of it, this one member of her family who wasn't given a gift, and that she was going to be trying to both fit into this family and learn to see them differently, but also find her own value at the same time. So we actually had that as our true north. So it's interesting, because knowing that that's what we're trying to build, I think that was something that really helped us through. I think the specific plotting on the way to get there, I think, is what shifted quite a bit. Like which gifts would the member of the families have? Not because we wanted to try a lot of cool gifts, but what would actually support Mirabel's story the most? What would be the most entertaining to watch? What would be the most relatable? You know, a character like Mirabel's mother, Julieta, who is able to heal through her food. You go, of course, that's what a mom would do. Julieta actually began as a character who controlled the weather, but because she didn't want to wreck, the town, she had to not show her emotions. But we found it's not as fun, but more importantly, it wasn't as relatable for a mom character. So I think it was really trying to figure out, how do we really distill it down to that? And I think one of the hardest things was to track Mirabel's progress emotionally without a buddy is actually really hard. I think we've gotten so used to being able to track where they emotionally are, having characters push back and seeing those relationships build. Without that, it was really tricky to see how every encounter with a different member of her family would affect her. And so it was really sort of putting those pieces together that took the longest amount of time. But Yvette and Byron, I don't know if you guys have other thoughts in there.
No, I think it's right. What's interesting and fascinating about this story is really from the very beginning, when Byron and Jared came together and started working with Lin-Manuel, they knew they wanted to tell the story about a family, and the idea of this magical family living in this magical house, except for this one character without a gift, has always been there. And so really, I think the core of our film, unlike a lot of different, stories take all kinds of paths to where they finally land, but this one in particular was really pretty steady the whole way.
One thing I will say actually is that our first screening, we have about 8 screenings, it was more of a quest within the house, and we changed it to a mystery. And so you're really sort of trying to figure out what's happening, which sounds like, oh, of course, make it a mystery, but there are almost no musical mysteries ever. Like I can't even think of one, right? So weirdly, we had no template to go off of. There's a reason why you typically don't, because it's really difficult to get characters to sing. Why would they do that? How to watch Mirabel go through that. So I think being able to crack a musical mystery was actually a great deal of work, and something hopefully when you watch it, it doesn't feel like it. But in practice, I think getting those pieces to land, having the music hit where we wanted it to hit, was something that took a lot of finessing.
Well, we should talk about some of that music, because Lin-Manuel Miranda's songs are an integral part of this, as well as Jermaine Franco's score. So is Lin kind of sitting there with you from the very beginning? When does he come into the picture in terms of making those? What was that collaboration like?
That was one of the really unique things about this project. I don't know that it's ever happened before at Disney, is that the songwriter being on board with you from literally day one. Like Jared and I met with Lynn 5 years ago, almost to the week, and we said we'd love to do this story about family. And Lynn had just worked with Jared on Moana. I think you guys were actually probably still working on it, and we're still finishing up parts of Zootopia too. So none of us were done with what we were doing before, but Jared and I knew we wanted to work together again, knew it needed to be a musical. Lynn had always been very keen about doing the definitive Latin American Disney animated musical. And we started talking about this idea of extended family, which all of us shared. Like, we have these big, wonderful, complicated families that are just really challenging to understand and to function. And we thought, well, that's a great thing to try to dive into. And so we really started talking at that point. But throughout the process, he's been an incredible creative partner, not only because he went on the research trips with us early on, and learned as we were learning about Colombia and Colombian music. But then as the storytelling really unfolded, as Jared and Charisse were evolving the script, and as our story artists were illustrating the visuals, then Lynn could also be a sounding board, someone who could influence character just by writing the Luisa's song, Surface Pressure, was one of the first songs that came in, and that did a massive amount to define who that character was. Like, after you saw that song, you go, okay, I know exactly who that young woman is for the rest of this movie. I know exactly how she should behave and what her issues are. And she got funnier, she got more specific. Jessica Darrow, who did the voice, was just perfect for her. So, and it's all those specifics that come from people bouncing things off each other and letting the music evolve the story literally as part of the storytelling process. So it was great. I'd never do it a different way from now on.
The other thing that's really unique, you mentioned he wanted to make the definitive Latin American musical, and I'm by no means an expert on Colombian culture, but I feel like I got such a specific experience of that from watching this film. How did you go about making that seem, getting an authentic feel for that?
So we do a lot, Disney Animation, we do a lot of research, and started very early on when Byron, Jared, and Lin-Manuel went to Colombia. They went on a research trip, and we started focusing in on Colombia and really wanted to kind of build this world. And there were a group of us that were supposed to, myself included, with Charisse Castro-Smith, our co-director, and our other screenwriter, and our leadership from our team. We were all supposed to go down to Colombia. Unfortunately, we were supposed to go at the end of March of 2020. And so, yeah, so we had to cancel the trip. So we knew in that moment that we had to pivot and really try to figure out, since we couldn't actually, our artists couldn't go and feel it for themselves, how do we bring it, to us? And so we, Juan Rendon and Natalie Osma were filmmakers that Byron and Jared had known from Zootopia, and we started meeting with them, and we really started forming this Colombian Cultural Trust. And so we really set up connections with architects, botanists, people who were experts on culture, on history, on even filmmakers and animators, and really just everything that we could to absorb the Colombian culture. And really, what was unique to this show is that every week we would meet with Juan and Natalie, and every single piece of artwork that was designed went in front of them. And really, we wanted to make sure that we were representing the country as beautiful as we found it, and as properly as possible. So we did that. And then also internally within Disney Animation, we created our group we call Familia Group, which is Latinx employees from Disney Animation. And really, we would come together once a month, and Byron and Jared and Charisse would just talk. We'd talk about family. We'd talk about what our experiences were growing up in Latin families and stuff like that. So it was all that really helped build this world.
Well, I have one more thing to ask. I would love all of you to chime in about this creative process before we have to wrap up, because you all have history with Disney Animation Studios. And we know like the creative process, it seems, on these films is so unique and different from the way others are created. There's always story comes from multiple people. There's, of course, two directors sitting here. What is it about that creative environment at Disney Animation that keeps you there, that keeps you energized? And what about that feeds you?
Oh, well, I mean, I'll start by chiming. I mean, that is the reason I'm there. I've been at Disney about almost 30 years now. And I think that the fact that this, we say it all the time, but it's absolutely true. It's like the most collaborative art form anywhere, even within filmmaking, I think, because there's so much time, honestly, dedicated to what it takes to create this medium. This animation is just by nature something that has to be done frame by frame. It's all handmade. We use computers, but people are crafting these things by hand, like the embroidery on Mirabel's outfit. Wicho, the guy who did this, he literally hand embroidered that blouse and that dress, like every stitch. It's not for free. It's like, and that's because everyone cares so much about what they're doing. But honestly, as a team, it feeds us as the leadership on the film. It's our duty to kind of protect the core of the story and see it through, so it becomes the final film. But that energy is something that we get from our crew, and so it's our job to inspire them. It's our blessing that we're inspired by them along the way. When they find things in the story that really feed us and inspire us, I think it's a give and take. So I love that it is a family, and even more so, this weird quarantine time has been a real test for our team. But man, I gotta say, like, I feel like we're closer than we've ever been after this experience. And just to know that this was a movie about a large family in a home, kind of all locked up together and got to figure each other out. It's the irony is not lost on us. So it's been great. But I love that about it. But what do you guys think? What's your?
Yvette, you want to jump in there?
Sure. So, I mean, I've been at Disney Animation for about 25 years, so less than Byron. But
Well,
by not much though. But really, it's what Byron really is. It's such a collaborative environment where everybody is contributing on the highest level, and everybody is passionate about what we do, about the stories that we're telling and the art that they're creating. And really, when you're surrounded by that every day, it's hard to think of working anywhere else where people, I wonder, I've been here for so long, but I wonder, I was like, are people this passionate and this dedicated and this, I grew up in production and really is in production management, where we're talking about, where a lot of people think of production management as schedules and, oh my gosh, and yes, we do all that, but really our job, we always talk about our job is really just to create room and space for the art to happen. And so, and that really comes from people who are so passionate about what they do. And so it's such a great place to work because everybody is really just trying to contribute the best that they can.
Yeah, and I'd say for me, early in my career, I was in television and sitcoms, and I was very used to a writer's room where you'd have a dozen people all working on a story together, trying to build something as a group. And that's very similar to our process at Disney Animation. So that was a very comfortable space for me to be in, where the best idea wins. You need to know sort of, what your true north is, but ultimately you're all trying to build it together. And that's something that I love, because especially for this movie, which is all about perspective, you want as many different perspectives as possible so that you're trying to cover. We have 12 characters. How do all those characters feel? We had definitely people on our staff that saw themselves as those characters. And so bringing those perspectives was invaluable. And then it is, like Byron's saying, it takes a long time to get all these pieces, because everything is the decision, like what color the sky is, what shape the clouds are, what a blade of grass looks like, what the stucco looks like, what that is. Like, those are all decisions that are made. And something, I think, for me, I can't imagine doing it as a single director on something. I don't even think it would be possible without dying. And then from a writing standpoint, I think that we have amazing collaborators. I think we have this amazing story team. I honestly think that many live action movies have many writers. They just typically don't credit them for the work that they're doing. I think that there's a lot of people that dive in, and I think because we're all this this big family and we work on every movie together, we want people to know that everyone really worked hard and put themselves into this movie. And so seeing them on screen is really important to us.
Well, it's a fantastic job, a great result of all of your collaboration. So thank you all for sitting down and discussing Encanto with me. If you're out there watching, subscribe to Gold Derby. We have plenty more videos like this throughout the season. And thank you all. Best of luck.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Sam. Great to talk to you.